Kamala Harris was at George Mason University. Is it George Mason? Do I have this wrong, Matt? Isn't it like the Libertarian?
It is George Mason.
Yeah, it's the Libertarian sort of Koch brother university.
Oh, really?
It's a little surprising. Maybe.
I mean, the economics department particularly.
Right. So Kamala Harris is there. This is in Fairfax, Virginia. And there's a student who very articulate for a college student, I guess. I don't really remember what college students are like. Maybe I'm just like dealing with like high school students or, not quite there yet. And Kamala Harris opens it up to questions, and she gets a question that I think she might have been a little surprised to get.
But I see that over the summer, there have been like protests and demonstrations in astronomical numbers standing with Palestine. But then just a few days ago, there were funds allocated to continue backing Israel, which hurts my heart because it's an ethnic genocide and a displacement of people, the same that happened in America. And I'm sure you're aware of this. And I bring this up also because of the issue of how Americans are struggling because of lack of health care, public health care, lack of affordable housing, and all this money ends up going to in funding Israel and backing Saudi Arabia and whatnot. And I think that the people have spoken very often in what they do need, and I feel like there's a lack of listening, and I just feel like I need to bring this up because it affects my life and people I really care about's lives, and this is just something I had to bring up.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. And again, this is about the fact that your voice, your perspective, your experience, your truth should not be suppressed.
Well,
that's not actually what it's about, really.
Oh, thank you for the yoga mantra, Kamala Harris.
We are about to, I don't know if it's actually passed quite yet, but we're about to give $1 billion ostensibly for the Iron Dome, which if you come down on one side or another of a conflict, you're going to change the outcome of what the negotiated settlement is. And in any given, like a little exchange that they have, this allows Israel to punish Gaza, without worrying, at least to some extent, about the implications of doing that. We give the biggest recipients maybe are pretty close. The two, Saudi Arabia gets some money from us as well. $1 billion, a couple of $1 billion is not going to make a huge difference in terms of how we would spend it in this country. But it makes a big difference in these countries, these smaller countries. And they are also the most developed of countries. The idea that we're funding Israel and giving them $1 billion. They're now on their third shot. They don't even recognize the first two as being vaccinated now in Israel. And yet, across the continent of Africa, I think there's even less than 10% who've gotten their first shot.
70% of nations have not met the 10% WHO threshold.
So we're funding nations like Israel and Saudi Arabia, who are, relatively speaking to the rest of the world, extremely wealthy. And we're just basically giving them a bonus. Here's a little cherry on top so that you can get the best possible weaponry to decimate people like the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay, U.S. military funding for Israel and Saudi Arabia, two wealthy countries in the top 25% of GDP, GNI per capita.
Yeah, and I just want to credit the young woman who asked that question. Sorry.
Amazing.
Yeah, awesome, and like the gumption that takes to say that to the vice president of the United States, like not even your local representative, she's the VP standing right in front of you. That's tough. That's hard. And so like that was a great question.
Yep.
And she's absolutely right about the cultural genocide or the ethnic cleansing. I forget exactly what phrase she used. But Kamala Harris's response also sticks out to me, and I just want to make this point because she's clearly going to try to run for president at some point again. She's a bad politician. Like, she's pretty much bad at everything, and she's done nothing as VP except maybe at the beginning of it when she pressured Manchin and Sinema on local television to vote for.
Well, to be fair, they also
the aid
sent her
package.
down to Central America to burnish her anti-immigrant bona fides by telling everybody to stay at home.
And there's more than that too. Like the circle of people around her, there's been question marks about like staffing and the way that they go about their business. There's just a bad vibe I get. And I have concerns of if the Democratic Party establishment sees her as the face of the future, because she's shown absolutely nothing to indicate that she has any real political gifts outside of, I think, a few. She's pretty good at interrogating people in Senate committees, but that's it.
To be
She's a
fair-
symptom of how alienated the Democratic Party leadership is from regular human beings, because she's never impressed anybody that wasn't a donor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Boom.
And to be fair, you know, vice presidents don't do much, but it is, you know, what we saw is her not taking a position on that, right? Where all of a sudden she pivots to, you know, this is empowering for you, and it has nothing, you know, the subject. This woman could have brought up, the college student could have brought up anything, and her
Yeah.
response could have been just as appropriate. I think we should all be vegans. I think we should all exclusively eat meat. I think that we, you know, we should provide education to people. We shouldn't provide education. You know what? I applaud you for speaking your truth and your perspective. I mean,
Yes. And what's
and-
crazy is, I'm sorry, I want to keep going, Sam.
well, it's there from a political standpoint. It's just avoidance, and that's sometimes. I don't know how far that can take you.
But she's so freaked out about this. I just sent this to you, Bradley, that there's a Politico piece about this question. It's like, someone tweeted at me, this is like Veep. Kamala Harris's office is doing damage control today. There's Drogon on Twitter today with pro-Israel Democrats after not pushing back on the student who, in asking her question, accused Israel of ethnic genocide. Like, this is how the Israel lobby is responding, because a student asked her a question and she wasn't sufficiently pushing back
Right.
on the 20-year-old who had concerns about ethnic cleansing in Palestine. I mean, talk about, one, like the fact that she would even respond to that and concede that there needed to be any kind of damage control. But the sensitivity of the right-wing Israeli lobby is like pathetic.
Yeah. Well, they don't want people to understand what's happening there, and it is. I mean, there is really no other way to describe it other than ethnic cleansing and genocide of an ethnicity.
Mhm.
There really is no other way to describe it. I mean, that's literally the plan.
This just in, Kamala Harris's office is doing damage control because we spoke about her in the same context of that statement that you just made. So
There you
yikes.
go.
Right.
Get on it. Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.